Lesson 4, Pairs of Angles. So this is a real short lesson. There's not as much vocab, and you might like that. But there's some important words here that we use a lot in geometry. First pair of angle is adjacent angles. The word adjacent means next to. So if you look at angle 1 and 2, those two angles are next to each other. To be adjacent angles, they must share a side, but have no common interior points. So if they're next to each other, they're adjacent angles. When you look at angle 3 and 4 down here, again, they share a side. So they're next to each other. They are adjacent angles. Just remember the word adjacent means next to. A linear pair, the key word there is the word line. Two angles that make a linear pair make a straight line. Angle 3 and 4 together make a straight line. They're a linear pair. So these are the definitions of these words. And again, we will use these a lot. Linear pair, two angles that make a straight line. Adjacent angles are next to each other. Now I need to point out one other thing, and this is to do with the homework too. In order to be a linear pair and make a straight line, they have to be adjacent angles. Automatically, they're adjacent if they're a linear pair, which I don't really like their directions here. These are exactly the same as your questions. Tell whether the angles are only adjacent and form a linear pair, or not adjacent. They've made that completely confusing for no reason. So I guess only adjacent means that they're not a linear pair is what they mean by that. They're next to each other, but they're not a linear pair. Automatically, if you say linear pair, they're adjacent. That's what it means. Look at the definition. The word adjacent is in it. So you don't have to say adjacent and a linear pair. You can just say linear pair when you do those questions in the homework. So they're either only adjacent, or they're a linear pair, make a straight line together, or they're not adjacent, meaning they're not next to each other. They don't share a side. Okay, a couple more definitions here. Complementary angles are two angles that add to 90, like 1 degrees and 89 degrees, or 10 degrees and 80 degrees, or 50 degrees and 40 degrees, or 45 and 45. Complements, that's another way to say it. Two angles are complements if they add to 90. Complementary angles add to 90 degrees. Supplementary angles, same idea, but this time it's 180. If two angles add to 180, then they are supplementary. So they're supplements if they add to 180. So again, 1 and 179, 10 and 170, 90 and 90. They're supplements if they add to 180. All right, last one, I believe, vertical angles. This is another important word. This is the definition. We'll have a theorem shortly that says vertical angles are congruent. The definition doesn't say they're congruent. It just tells you what they are. So you've got to recognize them, and that we do that with the definition. Shortly, we're going to know that vertical angles are congruent. You can look in the diagram and see it. See, if you see angle 1 and 3, how they're directly across from each other there, those are vertical angles. And the measure of 1 will equal the measure of 3. And angle 2 and 4, see how they're directly across from each other? Those are vertical angles. And it'll turn out that angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. And I'll show you why in class at some point here, why, or in a video, or both, why vertical angles are congruent. But know what they are. They're directly across from each other, and they're formed by intersecting lines. Whenever you have intersecting lines, you have vertical angles. So this is a homework question, exactly like the homework question. So if you get confused, come back and look at this. But angle EDF, remember when you name them, the vertex D must be in the middle. and angle GDH. Those are directly across from each other. They are vertical angles. The vertex must be in the center. Angle EDG and angle FDH. Those are vertical angles. When you name an angle, remember to put the angle symbol in front of it, and you always use 3 letters with the vertex in the middle. So as I said, this is a short section. There's some vocab words. You need to go through them. You need to memorize them. These are important words we use a lot. Adjacent means next to. Linear pairs when they make a straight line, and they've got to be next to each other. Complements add to 90. Supplements add to 180. And vertical angles, that's a theorem eventually. We'll get the theorem soon, meaning that's the fact that they're equal. Vertical angles end up being congruent. They're directly across from each other, formed by intersecting lines. Now, I'm going to just cover a couple of questions here real quick. An angle's measure is x. What is its complement? What is its supplement? Now, they talk about this in the reading, but I skipped over it really quickly. And they talk about it right here in the circle. So if the angle's x, the other angle is going to be 90 minus x. Think about it. Put a number in. If the angle's 10 degrees, 90 minus 10, or 80, would be the other angle. So if the angle's x, 90 minus x is what the other angle is. Same thing with supplementary. They add to 180. If the angle's 10, 180 minus 10 would be the supplement. So we're just putting an x in there. That's the difference. And that's what's going on in question 1. So if the angle's x, the complement is 90 minus x, the supplement is 180 minus x. Adjacent angles. Which side do they have in common? Now you can see the sides even without drawing the picture. Remember, B is in the middle. It's the vertex. BA is one side. BC is the other. We put a ray symbol over those. BC is one side. BD is the other. And which one are adjacent angles? I mean, they are adjacent angles. Which side do they have in common? Well, it was BA, BC, BC, BD. Which side do they have in common? So again, on 3, 4, 5, and 6, you can just say only adjacent, linear pair, or not adjacent. See angle 1 and 2? Yeah, they're adjacent. But the best answer is that they're a linear pair because they make a straight line. Choose the best answer. 2 and 3 in the picture are next to each other. They're adjacent. They don't make a linear pair though. 1 and 4 are adjacent. 1 and 2 are adjacent. Like 3 and 1, they don't share a side. They're not adjacent. And they certainly then don't form a linear pair. When you get 7, 8, 9, and 10, the supplement of A, well, that's going to be 180 minus whatever A is. The complement of A will be 90 minus whatever A is. Now, 9 and 10 messes students up. That's because they're saying 6x minus 5. This is a little algebra here. Well, remember, it's 180 minus the angle. So it's going to be 180 minus this thing. But notice it's in parentheses. It's more than one thing. So when you say 180 minus this, you have to distribute that minus and then combine like terms. So 180 minus 6x, distribute the minus, plus 5, and then combine like terms, simplify it. Same thing with the complement. It'll be 90 minus that angle, distribute that minus, combine like terms. Okay, we can take a look at 11 in class. Just ask me, and I'll go over it. So take a look at 12 and 13 to see if you can figure it out. These are really quick. This is more the 180 minus and the 90 minus for supplement and complement. So these two, if they're supplementary, they add to 180. So add these two up and add them to set it equal to 180. Find x and plug it back in. Same thing here, but they're complementary, they add to 90. Add those two up, set it equal to 90. Solve for y. Now it says find the measure of the angles. You got to plug it back in to find the angles. Once you get y and x on 26 and 29, you got to plug it back in to find the answer. So again, I'll be glad to help you in class. So if you have specific questions, there's a day to do that. And don't hesitate to email if you have questions. Have fun.